The central, jarring collision of later life is that while your internal sense of self remains remarkably constant, feeling like the same curious, capable person you were at 30, the stranger staring back at you from the bathroom mirror seems to be aging at a rate your brain simply cannot reconcile.
You know, if that feeling sounds familiar, I want you to know you are absolutely not alone. This isn't about vanity. It's a really profound and common phenomenon that we call mirror shock. So in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into this fascinating neurological event, this mismatch between your brain's internal map of you and, well, the external reality of your reflection. And more importantly, we're not just here to understand it. We are going to walk through a clear, practical protocol to find alignment and to finally make peace with the person in the mirror. Okay, let's get into it. We've broken this down into 5 clear sections. First up, we'll actually put a name to the experience in The Stranger in the Mirror. Then, we'll look under the hood at the brain science and why your brain rebels. After that, we get to the solution, the Identity Integration Protocol. From there, we'll make it really practical with 4 steps to alignment. These are daily practices you can start today. And finally, we'll zoom out and explore a whole new perspective in Becoming the Integrated Soul. It's a clear path from understanding to action. So, let's start with Section 1, The Stranger in the Mirror. The goal here is simple. We want to move from a state of visual dissonance, that jarring, confusing feeling of disconnect when you look in the mirror, to a place of narrative wholeness, a state where your reflection tells the complete, magnificent story of who you truly are. Just giving this feeling a name is the very first step to gaining some power over it. Now we're moving into Section 2, Why Your Brain Rebels. Here we shift from the emotional feeling to the actual scientific reality. That shock you feel, it isn't some personal failing or a sign of weakness, not at all. It's a predictable, mechanical process happening inside your brain. It's basically a glitch in the system. And honestly, understanding the mechanics of it is the key to taking its power away.
So the main concept here is called Proprioceptive Drift. Think of it this way. Your brain holds a self-map, right? It's an internal blueprint of you that feels, for all intents and purposes, ageless. This map isn't built from photos. It's built from memories, sensations, your entire lived experience. Your consciousness doesn't feel 40 or 60 or 80. It just feels like you. Proprioceptive drift is simply the name for that growing lag between your constant internal map and the new physical data your eyes are sending to your brain from the mirror. It's like your internal software hasn't updated to match the new hardware, and that processing delay is what creates that jarring, unsettling dissonance.
So how exactly does the brain process this external data? Well, that's the job of a neural pathway called the ventral stream. The easiest way to think about it is like your brain's built-in facial recognition software. It's constantly scanning the world, and that includes your own reflection, trying to make sense of what it's seeing. And when the data it collects, the face in the mirror, doesn't match the data from your ageless internal self-map, it triggers an error signal. It's a literal neural alarm that says, "Warning, mismatch detected." And that alarm is what you experience as shock or confusion, or that feeling of looking at a complete stranger.
Now, that error signal can sometimes go from 0 to 60 and escalate into what's known as an amygdala hijack. Your amygdala is the brain's ancient, really primitive threat detection center. When that mismatch is sudden and significant, and this often happens when you see an unexpected, candid photo of yourself that you just weren't prepared for, the amygdala can see this unfamiliar face as a fundamental threat to identity. It doesn't know the difference between a physical threat and a psychological one, so it just yanks the emergency brake, triggering this immediate, intense emotional reaction, that jolt of panic or sadness or even anger. It's a primal response to seeing a stranger where you expected to see yourself.
And several things can make this whole experience even more intense. First is something called the frozen face bias. Because you see yourself every single day, your brain just kind of smooths over the tiny gradual changes. It's basically auto-correcting the image to maintain that consistent sense of self. It's trying to be helpful, but it sets you up for a shock when reality finally breaks through. Second, we have the semantic trap. Our culture often frames aging as a status threat, right? A loss of visibility, of relevance, of value. So we don't just see a wrinkle, our brain interprets it as a symbol of decline, which triggers a fear response. Third is the Candid Photo effect. In the mirror, we instinctively pose. We find our angles, we present our best self. A photo, though, is objective, it's static. It can shatter that illusion and create a really painful sense of visual betrayal. And finally, all of this can lead to the avoidance spiral. To avoid feeling bad, we might stop looking in mirrors or we just delete all the bad photos. But that only prevents the brain from updating its map, which makes the next time we see ourselves even more shocking. It's a really vicious cycle. So this brings us to the solution, here in Section 3, the Identity Integration Protocol. Now that we understand the mechanics of the problem, we can move from problem to practice. And this isn't just about thinking positively. This is a protocol, a clear, structured set of procedures designed to actively retrain your brain, to close that processing lag, and to allow you to reclaim your self-image with purpose and with peace.
The most important point of this entire protocol is this. Mirror shock is not an emotional problem. It is a biological processing lag. Reframing it this way changes everything. It moves the experience from something to be feared into something to be managed. It becomes a technical issue that we can solve with the right inputs, just like updating software on a computer. It's not a moral failing, it's a maintenance task for your brain.
This whole protocol is built on 3 pillars. First, the compassionate gaze. This is all about calmly looking at your reflection to desensitize the amygdala's threat response. By just observing without judgment, you're signaling to your brain that this image is safe, which lets it update its map without a lot of stress. Second is narrative relabeling. This is where you actively change the story you tell yourself about what you see, shifting the meaning of physical changes from decline to evidence of a life fully lived. And third is candid desensitization. This just means intentionally and gently looking at unposed photos of yourself to build visual resilience and close that gap between your posed reflection and your objective reality.
Okay, so now let's get really practical. In Section 4, we're going to cover the 4 steps to alignment. This is where we move from the what to the how. These are simple, daily practices you can start today to actively and consciously integrate your internal sense of self with your external reflection.
So here's the roadmap for our practice. We're going to walk through each of these 4 steps in detail. The minute of mindfulness, which is for objective observation, the history scan, which is for narrative reframing, the candid commitment for building resilience, and the status anchor ritual for grounding your self-worth. Each one is specifically designed to target a part of the neurological process we've been talking about. All right, step 1, the minute of mindfulness. Once a day, for just 60 seconds, look in the mirror. Your only goal is to simply observe and name what you see, neutrally. Not, I see ugly wrinkles, but I see lines around my mouth. Not, I hate my gray hair, but I see silver hair. I see that the skin on my neck has a different texture. What you're doing here is literally training your ventral stream. You are consciously feeding it objective, non-emotional data, teaching it to process what it sees without triggering that amygdala threat response. It's like doing reps at a gym, you know? You're strengthening a new neural pathway.
Step 2 is the history scan. This one directly addresses that narrative relabeling pillar we talked about. Find a line or a feature on your face. Instead of seeing it as some kind of flaw, connect it to a story. Think about the decade of life it represents. Maybe the lines around your eyes are from squinting in the sun during a trip you'll never forget, or from years of laughing with people you love. Maybe a furrow in your brow is from the intense concentration it took to build a career, or solve a tough problem, or raise a family. You are transforming a physical mark from a symbol of decline into an emblem of a meaningful story. Your face becomes a map of your history.
Next up, step 3, the candid commitment. Now this one can be tough, but it is so crucial. Stop deleting every unflattering photo of yourself. We all have that impulse, I get it, but by deleting them, we just deepen that avoidance spiral and widen the gap between our perception and reality. Instead, keep a few. Look at them every once in a while, with that same neutral observation from step 1. The whole point is to bridge the gap between your idealized pose in the mirror and your authentic presence in the world. This desensitizes you to your objective image, and it ends the cycle of visual betrayal when you see a photo you weren't prepared for.
And finally, step 4 is the status anchor ritual. This is all about protecting your ego and your sense of self-worth. Before you even look in the mirror, especially on a day when you're just not feeling your best, I want you to pause. State one core value you hold that is completely independent of your appearance. I'm a kind person. I am a resilient problem solver. I am a loyal friend. I have a strong sense of integrity. By anchoring your sense of self in a stable internal value first, you encounter your reflection from a position of strength, and it diminishes its power to define your worth for the day.
So I'll ask you directly. Just take a moment right now to think about it. Pause if you need to. What is your status anchor? What is that internal value, that quality of character that has absolutely nothing to do with the face you see in the mirror? Defining this for yourself is a really powerful act of self-possession. This brings us to our final section, becoming the integrated soul. Now that we've understood the science and we've practiced the steps, we can zoom out from the technical details to a grander, more meaningful perspective. This is about seeing your face not as a problem to be fixed, but as a story to be honored.
This right here is the most important mindset shift you can make. You are not losing yourself to age, you are gaining a story. Every line, every single change is another paragraph in the magnificent, one-of-a-kind narrative of your life. It is the physical evidence of your resilience, your experience, your laughter, your wisdom. You are accumulating a story. You're not losing a self.
Ultimately, what this whole protocol leads to is this simple truth. Visibility is a product of integrity. And in this context, integrity just means wholeness. That state where your inner self and your outer self are aligned. They're in agreement, when you are no longer at war with your reflection. When that dissonance is gone, you become fully and authentically visible, embodying a soul that is complete, not fractured by some processing lag in your brain.
So, here is the takeaway, the very first step in your commitment to alignment. The next time you see a reflection, I encourage you to hold your own gaze for just a moment. Look with compassion, look with the understanding you now have, and say, maybe even out loud, this is the face of a life well lived. That simple affirmation, it's the beginning of everything. It is the first sentence in a new chapter of seeing yourself not as a stranger, but as home.